If you don't have Bitcoin today, you're missing out on the future. It's like everyone knows AI is going to replace everything, but everyone is in disbelief. And if you're not pushing towards AI, learning how to use AI, you're going to be obsolete. And it's the same thing in 10 years. The biggest problem right now, everyone says, the rich gets richer, the poor gets poorer. And see, one of the things that's happening right now, the rich is literally buying all the Bitcoin in your face. And people are still saying it's a scam. If you're still saying that in today's age, you are stupid. You need to wake up, right? Literally, this year, the United States made a Bitcoin reserve, right? What the Bitcoin reserve is, they just had a stockpile of Bitcoin, right? They seized assets before in the US, always just had Bitcoin. But now with this reserve asset, what they're saying is they're not going to sell Bitcoin. So in the past, what ended up happening was what? They would sell all their Bitcoin, which would bring down the prices of Bitcoin, right? But now that the fact that the US is not even going to sell it, that's going to make people start hoarding Bitcoin. That means there's a bunch of Bitcoin that you probably will never be able to get in your life, right? See, BlackRock right now is buying tons of Bitcoins every single day with their ETF. Michael Saylor with MicroStrategy is buying tons of Bitcoin every single day. What does that mean? That means in 10 years, you're not even going to be able to get a Bitcoin. And what does that mean? They're literally buying everything in your face. Like, people complain about a wealth transfer. People complain about the rich getting richer. They're literally doing it in your face. The United States has been talking about this forever. The president's talking about forever, and you're not buying it. You're a complete bozo, right? And so a lot of things, people just don't understand the impact of Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin gives you absolute freedom. What does that mean? The monetary system as it stands right now is completely broken. See, what the current monetary system happens, right? What the US is doing, they're literally printing dollars and printing dollars and printing dollars. That's the reason for inflation. Inflation isn't prices going up. Inflation is the money supply, the number of dollars in the system increasing. Meaning, if there's more dollars in the system, naturally prices are gonna go up and up and up, right? Because you can have an infinite supply of dollars. One thing people always say is, 20 years ago, oh my God, you could buy this house for $50,000. That same exact house that hasn't switched up is now $400,000, right? It's the same beat up house that needs a roof replaced, that needs a new washing machine, that's ugly as hell, that hasn't got renovated in 5-10 years, but it's $400,000 and they bought it for $50,000? Why? Well, did it get more valuable? No. The amount of money in the system just went up and up. See, the thing with Bitcoin, what you have right now, right? You have a fixed supply. So meaning it's the reverse. Whereas your purchasing power with dollars is always going up and up and up. No, your purchasing powers with dollars, the prices, everything's always going up and up and up. Versus what Bitcoin is exact opposite. Because there's a fixed supply of 21 million, right? 21 billion. See, at a certain point, people are not going to be able to get Bitcoin. And what's going to happen? The price is going to go up and up and up and up. Exponential, because people would do whatever they can. Once Bitcoin hits 1 million, people are going to do whatever they can to get one Bitcoin, right? They'll pay whatever price, because in the future it's going to keep on going up and up and up. There's a few things that Bitcoin is fixed, right? The current monetary supply, there's always going to be money printing. There's always going to be money printing. Because why? The way the US is set up right now, what they end up doing is, for example, China, we buy products from China, and what does US do? The US pays with that products, those goods, with our debt, right? And so what ends up happening with our debt, China comes back and then they buy US treasuries, right? And so what US treasury is basically just debt. And so in order for the US to pay back the debt, they never pay it back. What they end up doing is, let's say you have $20,000 worth of debt, right? But in the future, that 20,000 is, they're just going to print more, right? So now it makes the money value maybe 100,000. And so instead of paying that debt, you just increase the money supply and print fake dollars. So now you have 100,000 and you can easily pay that 20,000, right? So what ends up happening, the US is constantly in a debt cycle. They get in debt, then they print more money. They get in debt, then they print more money. They get in debt and they print more money. And what China's doing, they're buying all these treasuries, right? So imagine for you, You want to buy a PlayStation right now. And what you're going to do is, hey, I will give you my future 401k money. And that's how I will pay it, right? So now you're in debt with your asset, with your future income. And that's the same thing that the US is doing. So now I want that PlayStation, but instead I'll give you my future 401k, right? And so now you have to figure a way how to pay that back with your future asset, right? So we live in a broken monetary system. Another thing, even if you don't understand the monetary system, what Bitcoin actually does do, it's one of the fastest moving assets. So regardless, let's say you care about the actual Bitcoin fundamentals, right? That's a different conversation. But Bitcoin is the fastest moving asset. So what does that mean, right? It beats real estate. It beats stock market. It beats the 401k. And it definitely beats your saving. If you're just saving your money, your dollar gets weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. What does that mean? 10 years ago, you was able to, with a 100k salary, you could probably live comfortably. You could probably have a whole family. You could probably have your wife stay at home. But now 100k, you're probably not going to be able to do that in a major city like DC or New York, right? So what does that mean? Now you probably need like 200k. And so you need more dollars to have that same quality of lifestyle versus the same opposite with Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, hey, Bitcoin was 10k like maybe 10 years ago. Let's just say that, right? I can't remember the exact number, right? So to have a quality of life, it might take you 10 Bitcoins, so 100k, right? 10 Bitcoins, if Bitcoin is 10,000. Now, Bitcoin is approaching 100k, right? So it might just take you one Bitcoin to have that same lifestyle. So what does that mean? That means your purchasing power increased because you need less and less Bitcoin to have that same life. But now when you look at it in dollars, you need more and more dollars to have that same quality of life. Meaning if you're just saving and not getting any interest, you're just losing quality of life. You're losing purchasing power. What the banks actually do right now, right? They're not even required to keep any of your dollars, right? So example, back in the day, if you stored $1,000 into a bank account, they're required to keep $100, right? And then what they will end up doing is they'll end up loaning all that money out, and they'll create like maybe a car loan or a home loan, and they'll start getting interest and they start making money off your dollar. But now banks don't even have to keep any dollars in the bank account, right? So if you give them 1,000, they're not required to even keep a single dollar. They can loan out the whole money. So realistically, the banks most of the time don't have any liquid asset. They do, but if everyone tried to just take out their money at the same exact time, there'd be a bank run, right? The bank would easily run out of cash, right? Same thing that happened with, I can't remember what bank it was. It just happened like a few years ago, like a major bank had a big ass crash, right? And so because we're in America, we don't actually have to worry about it too much. But let's say you're in Lebanon, or let's say you're in Nigeria. What ended up happening? There was cases where you had your money in the actual bank, but you couldn't get access to it because the bank didn't have the reserve. And that could easily happen to you. But the thing with Bitcoin, now you take that into your own control, right? You can get your ledger, and nobody can ever take that Bitcoin from you. You're always going to end up having that Bitcoin. And another thing, when the bank is loaning out your money, they're using it. You're basically giving them a loan in hopes that they will have your money, right? So instead of using that as an interest-free loan, giving them an interest-free loan, why don't you just give yourself an interest-free loan? Why don't you go and invest your money and get that same return, right? Even if you're going to S&P 500, I would say go into Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin always goes up at least 30, 40% every year over a long period of time. You do have that volatility, but you need the volatility to go up. And when you have volatility, what does that mean? I can just buy more Bitcoin. So my purchasing power goes up in the dollar sense, right? Because let's say a Bitcoin is 100K right now. It might take me $100K to get one Bitcoin, but Bitcoin goes down to 30K. It only takes me 30K to get a full Bitcoin. And I know in a maybe 2030, it might be 1 mil. I know Bitcoin's eventually going to go to 1 mil. And so now I can get that same Bitcoin for 30K that's going to turn to 1 mil. That's a gift for my future. That's a gift for my family. And that's why you need to get in Bitcoin too. But yo guys, I'm done rapping. Make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe and put any comments if you have any questions.